Boker Tov. Pardon my appearance. Yes, I'm going to get a haircut today, 2 bits and a shave. So I wanted to speak about the situation with Afghanistan. And here I'm going to be a little hostile this morning. It's not my nature to be hostile, but I'm going to be downright hostile. Who am I going to be hostile to? Possibly you. But this is a broader, it's not directed at anybody personally. It's directed at everybody personally. It's directed at Democrats. It's directed at anybody who voted for Joe Biden. You are, well, let's put it this way. You're not a schmuck. You're worse. You're worse. Because you now have blood on your hands. You have so much blood on your hands are dripping in blood, soaked in blood. What do I mean by that? Joe Biden told us what he would do. He ran on a campaign to do exactly what he's doing. And as a result of what he's doing, there are tens of thousands of people that are being massacred over the next few weeks. Tortured, raped in Afghanistan. But it didn't begin in Afghanistan. It began in our own borders with people that are coming across here that will be committing awful crimes because there was no process that was manageable for dealing with immigration. You can have a great big heart, but you know what? I don't care how big your heart is, because it is absolutely inadequate for what is happening at our border. There is no excuse for allowing people to just come through our borders. And while there are definitely people that we should be admitting, while there is definitely humanitarian actions that should be taken, while there is definitely a part of America that is beautifully generous and philanthropic, this is not the way you go about it. You don't go about it the way we're going about it. Okay? Because let's talk about the portion that we just went through in the Torah, Shoftim. Okay? Shoftim, I think there are 34 chapters in Deuteronomy, otherwise known as the Mishnah Torah, the Second Torah, or the Deuteronomic Code. There are 34 chapters in Deuteronomy. Almost 41% of them are a list of laws. And some people think they're archaic because they just don't take the time to study the meaning and the relevance to the Ten Commandments. So let's take one of the most obscure ones, which is the unsolved murder and the breaking the back of the calf. Here you have in the story, in the Torah, I want to say it's Deuteronomy 20, thereabouts. It's somewhere between 16 and 21. It's in between there. There's an unsolved murder. And the order, what God has, or Moses tells them they have to do, is they have to measure the distance. I should say the body is found in a field, somewhere in between these two villages, these two communities. I don't know if they're called villages, but in any event. And the rabbis tell the Kohanim, the elders really, that they have to go out and measure the distance between the property line of each of their communities and the body. And then the one that's closest has to perform this very odd ritual. It involves getting a 1-year-old calf that has never been yoked, no blemishes, taking it out to a wadi, a field in the valley that has never been plowed, never been used. And they're there to break the back of this calf, and they're supposed to then wash their hands in the blood and say certain words, all for the atonement. What the Torah is teaching us here is not something archaic. In fact, it's extremely relevant to today. Okay? Those who don't study the Torah, of course, don't see it. All they see is the archaic, irrelevant nature of this. But what is the lesson to be learned from this? First of all, when you have a community like then, a murder is a very severe crime. In a small community where you know everybody, it doesn't take long to figure out who did a murder. I mean, the odds point pretty quickly to certain people, right? Let's face it, if there's no robbery, or if there was maybe some affair that happened, or some hate or stealing, there's, there are strong emotions that happen with a murder. And it's a very serious crime that's generally not, accidental, like we're talking about in the beginning of that Parsha, the inadvertent murder, where you hear setting up 3 refuge cities. In this particular portion, this is not an inadvertent murder. For this murder to have happened out in this field, where this person would never have been otherwise, there is a clear intent for this murder. Okay, a clear action and a clear cover-up. Okay, so what are the rabbis going out to measure out for? How are they solving the murder that way? How are they atoning for the murder? Well, they're not solving the murder. In fact, it's called the unsolved or unresolved murder. So we're actually saying this murder will not be solved. We're not going to find the murderer. But why is that? And what does it have to do with measuring? Because back to the notion of your community. If you know your community, you can not only prevent such murders, perhaps through food, charity, counseling, or any number of things. But when you don't know who's in your community, when people are able to come and go into your community without being documented, without being known, without being shown the out of the community, let out of the community, as the Torah talks about, this is what happens. And this is what's happening in America right now. We have people that are coming and going into our communities, and we don't know who they are. That's what you have when you don't have a formal or organized immigration process. That's what happened when you don't have a wall and a door. Walls have doors. Okay? And when you have doors, you're able to funnel. You're able to evaluate your citizenry. What we have today is the antithesis of that. And it's going to lead to murders. It's going to lead to rapes. It's going to lead to crimes. Not just against Americans, but it's going to lead to crimes even amongst the community that they're in. It's going to lead to drugs. It's going to lead to all sorts of things that we were starting to avoid. And Biden has gone 180 degrees the opposite way, because he's all about doing everything tearing down everything that Trump did. This is this radical left policy. And if you voted for this, you knew it would happen. It didn't take, as I say, any intelligence to figure this out. It's worse than being a schmuck. You're smart. We knew this would happen. And people voted for this to happen. And people voted for what's happening in Afghanistan. Experts in the government, in the Pentagon, in the administrations, and politics and pundits have said for 40 years or so, 30 whatever years, Biden has never been right on foreign policy. He's been wrong every step of the way. And he said he was going to do this in Afghanistan. And he did it. And he was warned over and again by his insiders that what we're seeing today would happen. And there are Afghanis, translators, advisors, people that worked with us in every capacity, and were defending the country against these Taliban, soon Al-Qaeda murderers, radical Islamic murderers. There are people that are being boiled to death, raped to death. And you voted for this man. And we knew it would happen. You have blood on your hands. Because of what? What was the crime that was talked about in the Torah? It actually goes back to the very first crime. The very first murder. Cain and Abel. Negligence, perhaps. It's argued that he didn't even know he would kill him. After all, in the Torah sense, there wasn't a murder up to this point. People didn't know that you murdered somebody. He was the first recorded murderer in the Bible. What was the issue? Why was he sent to a city of refuge? Because he didn't really understand he was going to murder somebody. Just like the inadvertent murder in the Torah portion that we're talking about, Shoftim, which means judges, the first word. Judges and officers you'll appoint. What was his crime? Cain's crime? Apathy. When God asked him, with the blood coming from the ground, where is your brother? And what's he say? Who am I, my brother's keeper? Not my brother's keeper. Apathy. The inadvertent murder in Shoftim, with the axe being negligent. He didn't mean to kill the person, but his actions led to the murder. The inadvertent murder in the beginning of Shoftim. And that's why we have the cities of refuge. Because of his apathy, that person murdered somebody. And at this point in the Torah that I was talking about, with the broken back of the calf, it's apathy again. Because the community didn't pay attention to who was entering its community. And because of that apathy, somebody died. The Torah also talks in this Shoftim about perverting justice, twisting the truth, corrupting the truth, taking bribes, bearing false witnesses, not having witnesses. And what we've seen in this administration, leading up to and now, and all the way back, is just that in our government. We have perverted justice. We have twisted justice. There was no Russian conspiracy. It was a Russian hoax. There was no Ukrainian conspiracy by Trump. And both of these times, Adam Schiff literally lied before Congress. He told stories about a phone call that didn't happen that way. And you impeached a president over lies. Over lies. God appoints kings in this portion. And kings have to read the Torah. They have to actually write the Torah. We have a president that's all for killing babies in the womb. This man is not a Catholic. He's practically being kicked out of the Catholic Church. No, it was hate for Trump and apathy for what was going to happen if we voted for Biden. Everything he warned, we were warned about. Everything he said he would do. The way we're handling China, etc. No, the Torah isn't archaic. It's relevant. It's just that people are too apathetic to think about it and to apply it. And they're presumptuous, which is also talked about in this portion. No, Shoftim has a lot to teach. It has a lot to teach. And some people twist the lessons that God gave us, and some people try to really understand them. Look, I love the people that I'm talking about right now. I love these friends that voted for Biden. I don't hate them. But you have blood on your hands. Because this is the man you voted for. You knew it would happen, and it's happening. Who's responsible for that? Pelosi? Did she fool you? Nadler? Did he fool you? Schiff? Schumer? Maxine Waters? AOC? Rashida Tlaib? Did they fool you? Did you get fooled by these people? No. You couldn't have been fooled. You're smarter than that. It's worse than that. You didn't care. You were presumptuous. But you knew. You took a risk. You took a risk, you could say, a negligent risk in putting a man in office that you knew was intellectually, cognitively compromised. You knew it. Because you're not schmucked. You knew it. But what will happen? Oh, worst that'll happen is Kamala Harris will have our first female president. She didn't have almost 1%. She dropped out of the race. People can't stand her. Even the black community doesn't like her. And that's your fallback? A person that kept people in prison, kept people on death row over lies, over hiding evidence. This is talked about in this Torah portion. An evil person that has evidence. Now, this Torah portion, Shoftim, is very relevant. And so what did they have to do with this unresolved murder? They had to wash their hands in the innocent blood of the calf. A calf that would never serve them, a field that will never now serve them, that they had to apologize, atone, and say, look, we didn't kill this person, which they didn't. They didn't do it with their hands. They did it with their apathy. People that say what I say are often blocked. You're going to say, oh, rightfully so, because you're talking about hate. No, I'm talking about love. And I'm talking about love. And people that love the Afghan people who were fighting for their women right to go to school, to wear what they want to wear, to have a life, to go to work, to drive. The Afghan people that were fighting by our side, they were lifted up by America to stand up and protect their country. I love those people. And they're now being tortured to death because of the apathy. People who voted for Biden. You have blood on your hands. Whether you want to know it or admit it or not, you do. How do you atone for that? I don't really know. I don't know.